Can I clean your house for a meal? But when the billionaire saw her, something amazing was revealed. Sarah stood at the edge of Thomas's sprawling estate, her heart pounding in her chest. Her hands trembled as she brushed back the hair that clung to her forehead. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of roses from the manicured gardens that surrounded the extravagant mansion. This was the life she had only ever dreamed of, far away from the harsh, mean streets of Maplewood where dreams often crumbled under the weight of harsh reality. She had fought for her country, yet here she was, asking this stranger for help. The gnawing shame wrapped itself around her mind like a heavy blanket, but she needed to feed her kids. With a voice shaking from both fear and determination, she spoke. Can I clean your house for a meal? The words tumbled out, desperate yet earnest. As Thomas turned to face her, an unexpected spark flickered in his eyes. She could see it, a recognition of struggle intermingled with enlightenment. Instead of dismissing her plea, he found himself intrigued as Sarah dusted the artfully arranged decor and neatly stacked books. Her spirit broke through the polished veneer of wealth that surrounded her. I just want a stable life for my kids, she shared softly, pausing briefly to catch her breath. After leaving the military, I hope to find work, but the jobs just aren't there. Her vulnerable honesty unfolded like petals of a blooming flower. Thomas felt an unusual stirring within him. She didn't just clean. She brought light into the shadowy corners of his lavish home. Her laughter intertwined with the sunlight pouring through the grand windows. But as he watched, there was a sudden disruption. His high society friends arrived for their extravagant dinner party, casual cruelty dripping from their mouths like honey. Look at this peasant, one snickered, eyeing Sarah. Can't believe he hired a maid that looks like she crawled from a dumpster. A tightness gripped Thomas's chest. He wanted to interrupt, defend her, but he hesitated as laughter exploded around him. Here was Sarah, resilient and kind, yet reduced to yet another target for their disdain. Just as he found his voice, chaos erupted outside. A siren's wail echoed through Maplewood. A child was hurt at the town fair. In an instant, something deep within Sarah ignited, and she rushed out, her instincts as a mother and soldier guiding her. Thomas followed, watching her transform as she entered a world where her community came together. Neighbors hurried to help, their unity engulfing him with warmth. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the dust settled and the child cried no longer, Sarah's neighbors wrapped their arms around her, reinforcing her strength. Thomas felt a stirring within him, recognizing this powerful bond, a stark contrast to his lavish world. The realization that money couldn't buy such unity echoed through his mind. Just as he decided to reach out to Sarah, his phone buzzed with a call from the city council, urgently requesting his commitment to invest in a charity gala, one that could usher in change for Maplewood. Between the weight of his privilege and the pull of his conscience, uncertainty gripped him. Would he bridge the gap between their worlds, or would he lose sight of the possibility for transformation? As he watched Sarah stand strong amid the chaos, he realized life was about to change for both of them. Thomas walked slowly towards Sarah, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. She had just leaped into action without hesitation. That strength resonated within him, awakening desires he wasn't quite ready to admit. As he reached her, her neighbors continued to praise her for her quick thinking. "You saved him," someone shouted, their voice thick with gratitude. "Don't say that," Sarah replied, a modest smile gracing her lips. "I just did what any of us would do." The hands of the clock ticked loudly in Thomas's ears. He had just witnessed resilience and love in action, qualities he hadn't seen in a long time among his circle. Yet here she stood, grounded in a reality so far removed from his. The evening air carried a lighter, more hopeful atmosphere. Perhaps he could do something to support not just Sarah, but the entire community. His phone buzzed again, rudely crashing through his thoughts. The call from the city council hung over him like a shadow, demanding his attention and tax obligations. I can't do both, he whispered under his breath as he glanced at Sarah, who was now kneeling down to comfort a child who had been scared but was now okay. In that moment, he felt a wave of inspiration wash over him. Hey, he started, but she cut him off, suddenly turning to meet his gaze. Thank you for coming after me. You didn't have to. Yet he did. Something about Sarah pulled him closer, something brimming with potential. Sarah, I think we need to talk about how to support the community better, he said, his voice steady. Your actions tonight showed me that there's a need I haven't seen before. People need more than charity. They require empowerment. Her eyes widened at his words, a flicker of hope igniting within. You really mean that? Absolutely. But before he could elaborate, the raucous laughter of his friends erupted nearby, turning the atmosphere cold again. What are you doing with her? One of them jeered, pointing at Sarah. Didn't he know you were into saving strays now? A fire ignited in Thomas's chest. The disdain in their voices snapped him back to the importance of his mission. You know what? Thomas said, his voice rising above the clamor. This is real life, and you're just standing there mockingly. If you can't see the good she's doing, then you're the real problem. The laughter stopped abruptly. His friends exchanged confused glances. Sarah stared at him, her mouth agape in disbelief. A warmth spread across his chest as he caught her grateful shift. Do you really think it's possible? She asked softly, the weight of her question hanging in the air between them. He nodded. I do, and I want to help you find the way. Together? She whispered, excitement creeping into her voice. As a start, yes. Just then, his phone vibrated again, a reminder of the gala meeting scheduled for tomorrow, reinforcing a path leading him away from her. His throat tightened. He had to choose. Mingle with the elite or stand beside a woman who embodied authenticity, hope, and strength. Sarah, will you come with me? Help me set the vision for our community? I want them to see what real strength looks like. She hesitated, her brows furrowing in thought. But what if they don't accept me there? Thomas felt a strange swell of confidence. Then we'll shock them. Better yet, we'll change their minds together. Just as a possibility formed between them, the shadows of doubt emerged. Would they really be able to bridge their worlds? The moment hung in silence, electric with tension. Will you take that leap? He asked, hopeful but aware of the stakes. Sarah's breath hitched along with her heart, the decision looming straight ahead like a fork in the road. The answer to this could change everything, he added, searching her eyes for assurance. That spark of courage shone back at him, yet would Sarah take the chance? As the night wore on, the winds of change rustled in the trees, whispering promises of new beginnings. They were both standing at the edge, ready to leap, but where would they land? Thomas watched Sarah's expression flicker through uncertainty and curiosity. Moments felt like hours as they stood there in the fading light, surrounded by a community that had started to coalesce around the bravery she had just shown. He could almost hear the rustle of that possibility between them, a quiet urgency begging to be claimed. Okay, Sarah finally said, her voice barely a whisper. If you believe we can really make a difference, then yes. I'll come with you. Her eyes sparkled with a blend of fear and excitement, igniting a fire in Thomas's chest that he didn't know could burn so brightly. His heart raced, a mixture of anticipation and nerves bubbling within him. This moment could shift everything, not just in their lives, but for the whole community. He exhaled slowly, the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders, and gave her a small, reassuring smile. Great. We'll figure it out together, he promised, feeling an exhilarating sense of purpose flood through him as they pulled away from the gathering. The laughter and taunts of his friends faded behind them. But Thomas knew the echo of their voices would stay with him. Leaving that world was daunting. It was a comfort he clung to for too long. Sarah took his hand, a light grip, yet it felt like a lifeline. Where do we start? She asked, her determination matching his own. Tomorrow, at the gala, we'll present our idea, he said, but first, let us talk about what that looks like. We need a vision. What does empowerment mean to you? She paused, her brow furrowed as she took in the vastness of the question. Empowerment? I think it's about opportunities. Getting people involved, making it personal. It's not just about giving handouts. It's about giving them the tools to build a better future. Exactly. Thomas felt adrenaline surging through him. That's what this city needs. We can't just talk at people. We have to invite them into the conversation. Make them feel heard. Sarah nodded, her enthusiasm growing as he spoke. And what if we create partnerships? Local businesses could chip in support. We need to leverage the community's resources. With each idea, they crafted a clearer picture of their dream, their shared vision materializing before them, a thing of beauty and weight. The more they spoke, the more boundaries around their lives began to dissolve. Their contrasting worlds seemed a little less daunting now, as if a bridge was forming right beneath their feet. Let us plan a meeting with some local leaders, Sarah suggested with a twinkle in her eye. They need to see how important this is. Sounds good. We can start at the gala, Thomas replied, his voice firm. Confidence surged as they walked into the dawn of tomorrow's possibilities. But just then, he glanced at his phone. The council meeting notification flashed angrily, a reminder of the life he was still tethered to. An ache twisted in his gut as the two worlds started to tug at him again. Thomas, what's wrong? Sarah asked, noticing his change in demeanor that he sighed, the pressure of his existing obligations overwhelming him. I just have a lot on my plate, I can't just drop everything. Maybe you don't have to drop it, she said, her voice steady. Maybe you can take the pieces you're willing to share and bring them into this new vision. Hope flickered within him. The idea of merging both worlds, of finding balance instead of choosing sides, felt right. But was it too much to ask of himself? Sarah squeezed his hand, grounding him. Let us take it one step at a time, she said softly. Thomas nodded, realizing that this partnership could be the grounding he needed. Yet as a bright light cast a horizon around them, he felt fear creeping back in. Would the trial ahead truly unite them or tear them apart? What if we fail? He muttered, more to himself than to her. Sarah's grip tightened. Then we learn. Together. As they stood on the precipice of change, the stars began to twinkle overhead. Both hopeful and wary, they moved toward what lay ahead, the shadows of doubt ever present. But beyond that dark uncertainty, the dawn of their journey promised something vast and beautiful. So, together they would leap into the unknown, but what awaited them could change the fabric of their lives forever. The next day dawned hazy and bright, the sun spilling over rooftops and the scent of coffee wafting from every corner cafe. Thomas shifted nervously in front of the mirror, adjusting his collar for what felt like the 100th time. Today was a big day, and the weight of his nerves sat heavy. He caught his reflection, an anxious smile, waited with expectation. You've got this, he told himself. As he made his way to the gala venue, he could feel energy thrumming beneath his skin. People milled around him, dressed in their grandest attire, but he felt out of place, more like an interloper in a world he didn't quite belong to. It was ironic how he had always wanted to fit in and now found himself wishing to blend into the backdrop, to be less visible. When he reached the entrance, he felt Sarah's presence before he saw her. She wore a bright blue dress that flowed with grace, the color bringing out the spark in her eyes. As she waved, he noticed the way people turned their heads to catch a glimpse her confidence radiated and somehow diminished his own. You look amazing, he breathed, feeling a swell of warmth in his chest. Thanks. And you look sharp, she said, her smile infectious. They stepped inside, where the room was alive with laughter and conversations. Strings of fairy lights danced above, and the air buzzed with excitement. But beneath it all, Thomas felt a wave of uncertainty. How could they possibly present their vision among such grandeur? Remember, this is your community too, Sarah said, as if sensing his inner turmoil. We're not just here as outsiders. We're here to change things. He nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. They approached a small cluster of local leaders, their faces flushed with enthusiasm. As they introduced themselves, Thomas's heart pounded. This was it. This was where change could begin. After the initial pleasantries, Sarah took a step forward. We have an idea we believe can truly empower our community, she said, her voice unwavering yet warm. The leaders turned, interest piqued. Thomas felt a rush of admiration for her. With each word, she conveyed their vision, painting a picture of unity and potential. He chimed in, his confidence building, the energy shifting as their passion spilled over. But in the midst of their pitch, he caught a glimpse of someone watching them intently. A man, tall and composed, stood at the back, arms crossed, with an expression that hinted at skepticism. Thomas's gut twisted. He'd seen that look before. It was a look that challenged, that criticized without the need for words. Just as his thoughts spiraled, Sarah mentioned the necessity of local businesses contributing. Imagine if we could incentivize partnerships to not just give resources, but foster genuine community engagement. The group nodded, intrigued. Yet, the man at the back remained unmoved. Fostering genuine engagement is all well and good, but are you prepared to face the consequences of disappointing a community? He asked, his voice cutting through the hopeful atmosphere like a gust of cold wind. Thomas felt Sarah's presence beside him waver. We triple our efforts if that's the case, she replied, her resolve stark against his uncertainty. We want to just walk away if things get tough, Thomas added, stepping in, feeling the need to bolster their stand. We're committed to seeing this through. He glanced at Sarah, her fire flickering with newfound determination, yet his eyes drifted back to the man, who seemed to consider their conviction, but doubt had spiraled like a vine in his heart. What if the man was right? What if they failed? The fear was a weight on his chest, feeling heavier with each passing moment. As he watched the debate unfold, he felt a pull within himself, a question hovering in the air. Could they really make this work? Would they stand up against the cold winds of skepticism and redefine what their community could do? As the room buzzed around him, he realized this was just the beginning. But what would happen if they fell short? Would they have the courage to stay and face the aftermath? The stakes felt higher than ever as they stood at the edge of change, grappling with the unknown. The man's skeptical expression was unyielding. Thomas could feel his heart racing, blood pounding in his ears as confusion swirled. He had hoped for encouragement, for an open dialogue. Instead, they were confronted by doubt. But in that storm of anxiety, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. Every great endeavor faces scrutiny, he declared, surprising even himself with the strength in his voice. What we're proposing is a bold step towards something greater. Isn't that worth fighting for? The room fell silent. Sarah turned to him, a mix of confusion and pride flashing in her eyes. The local leaders exchanged glances, uncertainty mingling with curiosity. Passion is good, the skeptic replied, shaking his head, but it must be matched with careful planning. You're talking about commitment. Commitment takes more than just words. A harsh truth, yet it hung in the air, a challenge dangling like a ripe fruit. Thomas felt the weight of that remark land heavily on his shoulders. He could see it now, the frailty of their proposal, the delicateness of their aspirations. What if we held a community meeting? Sarah suggested, stepping in to reclaim the energy. We could present our ideas more comprehensively, gather input, engage everyone. Engagement is key, Thomas added quickly, feeling a kindling of hope in Sarah's lead. Together, we can map out a plan that addresses concerns before they arise. We're not just asking, we want to involve everyone in this journey. The room buzzed back to life. The leaders leaned in, murmurs of contemplation filling the air like a gentle breeze. But the skeptical man remained stony-faced. And what if it fails? What if the community's expectations exceed what you can deliver? Thomas's stomach churned. That question had pressed on his mind all along. Then we own it, he said, and the words poured out before he could filter them. We learn, we adapt. That's the essence of growth, isn't it? If we don't lean into the fear of failure, we'll never know what we're capable of. Exactly, Sarah chimed in, her voice steady, bringing the leaders back into focus. None of this movement will mean anything without the community's faith in us. We build trust by being present through action, through our dedication to seeing this through together. For a moment, the man's expression softened, just a fraction. Still, it was enough for Thomas to catch a glimmer of what could be a chance to connect, to inspire. Let us take the next step. Then, he said, grounding hope in determination. We'll set a date for this meeting. What is more important than our vision is our ability to listen to your concerns. The leaders nodded, their eyes brightening with cautious optimism. It was an opening, a potential spark for something greater, but uncertainty lingered like a shadow as discussions continued. A warmth spread in Thomas's chest, a reminder that vulnerability could be an ally. Maybe, just maybe, they'd weather the storm together. After the meeting concluded, Sarah pulled him aside, her eyes sparkling. I was worried there for a second with the way he challenged us. But when you spoke up, wow. Thomas shrugged, but a smile crept across his face. I couldn't let us back down. Just then, as they gathered their things, The man approached them again, his stance more open now. I respect your tenacity, he admitted, his voice steady but softer. But preparation is key. If you're really committed, I suggest considering every angle. The community deserves a solid plan. Thank you, Thomas said, feeling a flicker of connection. We'll work on it. But as they left the venue, adrenaline still buzzing, doubts loomed large in Thomas's mind. What did they truly know about engaging their community? What if their best effort wasn't enough? As they stepped into the night, a thought hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. Were they truly ready for the challenges that lay ahead? Would their resolve be enough to sustain them when the winds of skepticism returned, even fiercer than before? The road ahead was uncertain, but the night had just begun. What other surprises awaited them beyond the horizon? Thomas walked down the sidewalk, each step echoing his unease. The night air was crisp, and streetlights flickered overhead, casting playful shadows on the ground. He stole a glance at Sarah, whose excitement still shimmered at the edges of her expression, yet her determined features concealed the turbulence he also felt. What if the community meeting doesn't go as planned? He wondered aloud, breaking the silence between them. Sarah paused, biting her lips slightly. We'll be ready, Thomas. If we prepare and engage, we've got a good shot. Doubt is just part of the process. Her voice was laced with optimism, but Thomas couldn't shake the feeling pulling at his gut. Yeah, he replied, but his heart didn't match his words. What did they have besides hope? As they approached a small coffee shop, Sarah's eyes brightened. Let us grab something warm to drink. We need fuel if we're diving into a plan tonight. Sure, Thomas said, allowing himself a moment to bask in the warmth of her enthusiasm. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods wrapped around them like a cozy blanket. He ordered a cup of black coffee, while Sarah opted for a creamy latte, her choice revealing her lighter nature. They snagged a corner table, and as they sipped their drinks, a whiteboard in the cafe caught Thomas's attention. It was filled with community events, announcements, and flyers, a reminder of connections waiting to be forged. Look at this, he said, gesturing toward the board. There's a community potluck happening next weekend. We should get involved. It's a way to meet people, listen to their needs, and get our idea out there. Sarah nodded eagerly, her eyes shining brighter. That is perfect. We could set up a booth, or even prepare a dish to share. It shows we care. And it gives us a chance to gather feedback, Thomas added, a little more animated now. People might open up more in a casual setting. The flame of inspiration flickered between them, igniting plans they hadn't considered before. Later that night, they sat in Sarah's living room, the glow of her lamp casting a warm light over a clutter of notes and sketches. The room felt alive with energy, the kind of energy that promised possibility. Okay, we could break down our presentation based on concerns we expect, Sarah suggested, her eyes scanning their scattered ideas. Feedback on resources, logistics, engagement strategies. What if we included success stories? Thomas interjected, grabbing onto another thread of hope. Real examples of community projects that turned out well? It could help visualize our vision. Yes, that could create a narrative that resonates. Her excitement ignited the room, filling it with a growing determination that as they discussed, laughter emerged alongside serious dialogue, keeping the hope flowing freely. Hours passed like minutes, but as the clock struck midnight, a sudden silence fell. We need more than just preparation, don't we? Thomas whispered, the weight of their ambition crashing against the walls of his mind. Sarah met his gaze. Yeah, we have to be ready for anything. People's doubts, fears they might not welcome our ideas at first. Exactly. What if we put ourselves out there emotionally? Share why this is so important to us personally? Then we own our truth. Thomas nodded, feeling the truth resonate within him. They would stand together, ready to face whatever came their way, buoyed by their passion for change. But even as resolve hardened in their hearts, an unsettling thought lingered. What if their truth wasn't enough to sway the skeptics in their community? With unanswered questions hanging heavy, they closed their notes, their hearts racing with anticipation. The real test was only just beginning. Would the community welcome their plans, or would they find themselves retreating into the shadows once again? Morning light streamed through the curtains, spilling into Sarah's living room like a warm invitation to a new day. Thomas sat at the edge of the couch, nursing his second cup of coffee, the rich aroma mingling with his rising anxiety. Today was the day of the community meeting, where their arms and hearts would be fully open, exposed to judgment and scrutiny. "What do you think they're going to say?" he asked, looking up at Sarah, who was pacing back and forth, flipping through their prepared notes one last time. "I think they'll surprise us," she replied, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. "We've put our heart into this, and people appreciate that. It's about connection, right? They can feel our passion. Or our desperation," Thomas muttered, the self-doubt creeping back into his mind. He took another sip, feeling the heat settle in his stomach, a warm comfort battling against the cold clutch of uncertainty. "Hey," Sarah stopped in front of him, her eyes locking onto his with fierce determination. "We're not desperate. We're committed. There's a big difference." He smiled faintly, grateful for her unwavering spirit, but his mind raced. What if they don't see it that way? What if they only focus on the challenges and say no? The weight of the question hung in the air. Sarah sighed. "We'll just have to be clear about why we believe in this. Our personal stories matter. They shape our vision." As they prepared to leave, Sarah grabbed her bag. The sound of zipper echoed like a starting gun, signaling that their journey was about to begin. Together, they headed for the community center, shadows stretching and dancing in the morning light, mirroring their own inner turmoil. When they arrived, a small crowd was already gathering outside the building. Laughter mixed with nervous chatter filled the air. Thomas felt overwhelmed, their presence like a tidal wave threatening to pull him under. He glanced at Sarah, who seemed to breathe in confidence, her posture erect with resolve. "Let us find a spot near the front. We want everyone to see us," she said, her voice brimming with conviction. They staked out their place, and as more people trickled in, Thomas noticed a familiar face. Miss Thompson, an elderly woman from the neighborhood, shuffled over. Her cane tapped rhythmically against the pavement, each beat sending a jolting reminder of time and the experiences carried within the community. "Good morning, you two," she called, her smile warm and genuine. "What brings you here, if I may ask?" "We have a proposal we want to share," Thomas replied, surprised at how the words spilled out, no longer laced with his earlier anxiety. "Just don't forget us little folks when you make your big dreams come true," she said, a twinkle in her eye, further igniting his hope. Before he could respond, the doors swung open. A wave of people surged forward, and Sarah squeezed his hand, her grip lending him strength. As they settled into the meeting, voices rose and fell, debates sparked, and passions ignited. Thomas felt something shift within him. The energy in the room crackled with potential. But just as quickly, the chatter turned into a cacophony of doubts and skeptics, drowning out his hopes. "Is what you're proposing realistic?" A voice called from the back, slicing through the air like a knife. The ripple of agreement raced through the crowd, a wave of skepticism washing over him. He felt Sarah's hand tighten around his fingers. She turned toward him, her expression resolute. "Now, this is our moment," she said, silently encouraging him to take the leap. "Can I clean your house for a meal?" he said suddenly, his voice rising above the murmur. A hush fell over the crowd. Gasps and whispers spread like wildfire, while hopeful eyes turned toward him. The room felt electric, each moment sparking with newfound tension. What had he just done? In that instant, he realized they weren't just presenting ideas. They were daring to step outside the script and into vulnerability. Suddenly, the stakes felt all too real. Would this unconventional approach resonate? Or would it backfire in the worst way? The silence stretched, the possibility of connection hanging in the air like the taste of coffee on their tongues, bittersweet and full of promise. The silence was palpable. Thomas could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, waiting for something, anything. His heart raced. It felt as if it might leap right out of his chest. A knot twisted in his stomach, and he could almost hear it churn with the weight of uncertainty. What had he just thrown into the air? Sarah released her grip on his hand just a fraction, looking around at the faces that surrounded them. He could see the expressions flicker: curiosity, astonishment, and just maybe a hint of understanding. He gritted his teeth and closed his eyes for a beat, biting back the wave of embarrassment that threatened to crash over him. Did I just ruin everything? Thomas thought, looking at Sarah. But she wore a steady smile, her eyes glinting with determination. She took a half step forward, as if ready to speak, but the murmurs from the crowd grew. "Can you explain that, please?" Another voice called out, this one laced with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. Thomas turned to face the speaker, a middle-aged man with thick glasses who leaned forward in his seat. The room leaned in closer, as if holding its breath. "Yeah, what do you mean by that?" Someone else chimed in. Thomas opened his mouth, ready to clarify, but instead found the words slipping through his fingers like sand. All he had were memories flashing in his mind, families struggling, rent due notices piling up, kids looking for a simple meal. "I just thought maybe I could offer my help in exchange for what I need," he finally managed to say. The vulnerability of his admission cloaked in urgency. Sarah stepped in beside him, her presence solid and reassuring. "What Thomas means," she began, her voice unwavering, "is that food shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a right. This community thrives on sharing. We can all help each other." The room rippled with a mix of murmurs. Thomas saw the light of recognition spark in some faces. They were beginning to understand, and a swell of hope brushed against his heart. There was a chance. But would it be enough? "Are you saying you would clean houses to help other families eat?" Miss Thompson's voice floated in from the back, filled with a kind of amazement that settled over the assembly. Yes, exactly." Thomas nodded enthusiastically, feeling emboldened by her support. "If we can all offer our skills in exchange for basic needs, think about how that could change things. We can create a local network of support. If everyone gives what they can, we'll build a stronger community together." The mood in the room shifted, the tide of skepticism pulling back little by little. People began to nod, some whispering their agreement, others starting to lean forward, intrigued. A spark ignited as hope fluttered in their eyes. "Is this something we could actually try?" Another voice ventured, this one a woman in a colorful sweater. "I mean, where do we even start?" Thomas exchanged a quick glance with Sarah, and in that moment, they both realized how monumental this could be. The plan had never been this vivid in their minds, and his heart beat wildly against the possibility of an actual answer to their worries. "Let us start here," Sarah said, raising her hand slowly. "What if we set up community boards? We could have a sign-up sheet for services every week, cleaning, cooking, whatever people can offer. We could also list what families need. We can create a system where everyone plays a part." Excited chatter ignited again, rippling through the room. Thomas felt buoyed by their enthusiasm. Could it really be happening? Could they, ordinary people, create extraordinary change? Before he could bask in the moment, a figure approached from the back of the room. Thomas blinked, adjusting his gaze. It was the mayor, her presence commanding as she stepped forward. Her voice heightened, drawing attention. "I think what you're proposing is revolutionary," she said, contemplating them both. "Could we actually turn this into a formal initiative?" Her question hung heavy in the air, demanding an answer. The room fell silent, anticipation crackling like electricity once more. Thomas looked at Sarah, his mind racing, ideas swirling. This could turn into something far bigger than they'd ever dreamed. But just as hope began to lift his spirits, he felt that familiar heaviness return. What if this was all too ambitious? What if they couldn't make it happen? He inhaled deeply, searching for courage in the faces surrounding him. "We can if we all do it together," he said slowly. "But it requires everyone's passion and support." The mayor nodded, and the eyes of the crowd remained fixed on him, the potential of change sparkling before them. Yet, in that moment of connection, he realized something unforeseen was brewing. Could they turn vulnerability into strength? And what if he failed? "Next steps," Thomas continued, his voice steadying against the uncertainty. What was shining bright on the horizon would beckon them to explore. But would the community rise to meet it? As they began to discuss possibilities for their plan, a sudden unease settled over him. Little did they know, outside the doors, people were watching them closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. Thomas felt a weight settle over him as he looked at the crowd. Questions were flying back and forth, excitement spurring a flurry of ideas. But the unease gnawed at his gut. He had stepped out on a ledge, and now he wasn't sure if he could hold it. "Are we really going to do this?" he thought, watching his hands shot up across the room, eager voices pushing for answers. Where will the funds come from? Who is going to run this? Those thoughts buzzed around like bees in his mind. Amidst the thrumming energy, he caught glimpses of hopeful faces, eyes flickering with the prospect of change. Miss Thompson stood up, her voice rising above the crowd. "What if we set up a meeting every week? a kind of potluck gathering where everyone brings something to share, not just food, but skills, ideas. A ripple of agreement swept through the room, igniting a spark in Thomas. He nodded, catching Sarah's eye. They shared a moment of joy, a quick, unspoken acknowledgement that perhaps their unformed dream was beginning to take shape. Yes, a community potluck. That could work, he shouted, the enthusiasm breaking through his prior anxiety like dawn after a long night. We can have a space where anyone could come share stories, needs, talents. Create a real exchange. The mayor's brow furrowed thoughtfully. And what about the logistics? She interjected, practical as ever. We can't ignore the details. How will we manage the offerings? Can we ensure standards? Maybe we can reach out to local businesses? Sarah suggested, her voice imbued with hope. They love giving back to the community and could help provide supplies. A partnership. Just then, a young man in a faded cap raised his hand. What if we created a website? A digital board where people can post what they need and what they have to offer. Thomas felt the room buzz with the suggestion. People leaned in closer to discuss the idea, excitement growing. That could keep everything organized, he thought, his heart racing with anticipation. But just as the planning session began to blossom, a sudden noise erupted from outside the community center. Voices raised angrily, the sound of shouting and commotion cutting through the optimistic atmosphere like a knife. What is happening? Panic prickled down Thomas's spine. The crowd turned as a group of people, dark clothing indicating they meant business, gathered outside the doors, faces twisted in anger. Fear etched lines into the mayor's forehead. Everyone please stay calm, she instructed, her eyes scanning the crowd. The door creaked open as one of the group barged in, pointing a finger at Sarah and Thomas. You think you can just give away food? You want handouts to thrive? His voice dripped with venom. This isn't the way. You'll ruin everything we've built. Thomas felt his heart plummet. The hope they had ignited was now threatened by hostility and fear. No one said this was easy, he heard himself thinking. But should we back down? The thought unsettled him. Though fear surged within, another feeling ignited alongside it. He wasn't just fighting for his own needs, but for everyone else's, too. Let us hold our ground, he murmured, voice barely above a whisper but filled with determination. We need to show them we care. We can't give up this easily. The crowd's energy shifted. Anger and confusion battled against the tide of hope. Let us not let fear drown our voices, Sarah said, her presence steady like a lighthouse in a storm. But all around them, tension crackled. Would their budding community stand strong? And what would be the cost of standing up for what they believed in? Thomas felt the pull of opposing forces, the uncertainty creeping back in. Outside, the crowd continued its furious protest, but inside, their resolve began to solidify. Would they rise together, or would they fall apart? As the door swung wider, Thomas braced himself for what lay beyond. The door swung open wider, exposing the faces bathed in anger outside. Thomas felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. But he straightened, feeling Sarah's steady presence beside him. They were in this together, and that thought provided an anchor amidst the brewing storm. Enough, Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the noise like a lifeline. The crowd fell silent, surprised by her courage. These ideas aren't just ours, they're for everyone. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. It was a small shift, but it mattered. Do you think we would waste our time giving things away without thought? Thomas added, stepping forward. This community needs more than anger. It needs understanding. We're building something stronger, not tearing it apart. The man from outside crossed his arms, skepticism still heavy in his stance. You think everyone is on board? People out there don't want your proposals. They want stability. Thomas felt the tension rise again, doubt threatening to seep back into his mind. We're creating stability. Just look at everyone here. He gestured to the crowd that gathered, their eyes wide, filled with hope. We're asking for input, not taking from you. Slowly, other voices joined. We've all struggled, chimed in a middle-aged woman from the back. We want to work together. That's the point. Encouraged by the sound of unity, Sarah leaned in, her heart pounding but her soul ablaze. Exactly. This isn't a handout. It's a hand up. We're not here to ruin, but to transform. If we come together as a community, we can uplift each other. This time, the nodding heads were more numerous. Thomas felt the energy shift, that surge of hope revitalizing their intentions. And then, from the back, Ms. Thompson rose again, her cane tapping softly against the floor. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 50 years. It's time for us to come together. I've seen struggles, and time and again, the strength of our community helped us rise. The crowd echoed her sentiment, voices weaving together in a tapestry of support. Let us not forget that strength means listening, too. A younger man called out from the front. Let us hear the needs we have. Hosts of the potlucks could perform what each of us needs: cooking, cleaning. Everyone can contribute, but we need to listen. Thomas caught Sarah's gaze, emotions swirling: relief, pride, determination. They were igniting something profound. Thank you, the mayor said, stepping into the opening once again, her demeanor more relaxed. What we're rallying for is inclusion. Can we embrace not just the needs but the voices that matter? Yes, came the chorus from the crowd, reverberating with enthusiasm. Amidst this newfound wave, the man who had stepped in earlier hesitated. Surprise flickered across his features as he surveyed the now energized room, no longer filled with fear, but with a fierce willingness to cooperate. Thomas took a breath deep enough to fill his chest. You're right, he said slowly, directing his words toward the man. We need commitment. We need engagement across the board to make a change. Then let us set a plan. Let us create an organizing committee to guide this journey, Sarah suggested, her face alight with passion. We'll work together to keep each other accountable. Suddenly, the air around them felt electric, the energy alive with possibility. Uncertainty began to peel away, revealing a thriving spirit waiting to emerge. With each spoken idea, the room expanded, and together, they forged a vision tangible enough to grasp. They would create a space for food sharing and skill exchanges, a community that thrived on participation. But deeper still, they would lay roots that encouraged empathy and resilience, an interconnected tapestry that made each person feel valued. As the discussions deepened, laughter replaced lingering doubts. The unexpected has pulled them from chaos into a symphony of ideas, each voice harmonizing in authentic interactions around hope. And then, it happened: a decision was made to host the first community potluck next weekend. The date was set, excitement swirling like a lively breeze. As people rose to leave, a sense of solidarity filled the room. They felt empowered, a new energy coursed through their veins. They were more than individuals, now together. They were a force to be reckoned with, a community ready to reshape their destiny. Thomas turned to Sarah, the weight of the day shifting in his heart. We did it, he whispered, disbelief morphing into profound joy. Her smile was radiant. This is just the beginning. With tears of gratitude glimmering in his eyes, he understood. They had crossed the threshold, carving a path toward transformation that extended beyond their dreams, a journey linking them to every neighbor, every family, and every hope beating within the tapestry of community life. Together, he said, and together they would rise. Before long, they were not just a couple of dreamers, but champions for unity, bound for a future illuminated by the strength forged in vulnerability and purpose. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to join this incredible journey. Leave a like now to show your support and fuel the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Be a part of our story. Let us create a wave of change together.